So today we talk about this exceptionally fine and also very large cast Buddha, which is in this auction on October 16th, 2025, fine Asian art. And it's lot number 79. Here it is published in the catalog. And the interesting thing about this one is it is, of course, Tibetan in style, and it has also some Nevari influence. But it's later because the metallurgic analysis shows a high, predominantly copper and zinc alloy with very little tin in it and absolutely nothing else. So there is no, of course, there's like minor traces as in all alloys, but it's essentially a type of alloy which was very common in imperial China from the Yongle and Xuande periods in the mid of the 15th century. There were a lot of pieces made back in these days that have more or less exactly the same alloy composition. There is a substantial analysis in the Riedberg Museum that holds a group of these statues and which has been published in Arts of Asia. And the thing is that these workshops also, of course, worked for Tibetan patrons and also made tributes that were made from the Yongle Emperor and the Xuande Emperor to the Tibetan nobility and the Tibetan monks that were in residence at the imperial palace in China back at that time when the connections between imperial China and Tibetan royalty and the Tibetan religious monasteries were very, very close. And that is when this figure was made. It's made of two parts. It's the central torso and then the head, which is cast separately and attached here with several bolts. It has remnants of silver, which has been applied, the silvering using the mercury silvering technique, which is typical again for the imperial workshops at that time. It also holds remnants of ancient pigments all over, which have mostly been removed. The decoration is pretty simple, which is typical for the time. So it only wears the garments here with some fine incision work, which is not exaggerated or cluttered, as is on later figures from the 16th century or 17th century, especially when they get larger. The base has been assembled, has been added to this piece at some point in its history. It very much looks like a 13th to 14th century base. It's solidly cast, it has its own ceiling, so it's probably a bit earlier than the actual figure, which resulted in the fact that, and I will try to lift this now to demonstrate this, which resulted in the fact that on this figure here, what you see here would be a typical mala base, actually, from Nepal. It had 3 tongues here, 1, 2, 3, which were to fit in the base. And in order to fit this base, they were cut off here. At that point in time, it was also probably resealed with a very fine seal plate, which is untypical for the period. So this could be later than the actual figure, but it has very, very fine incision work. It matches the figure very well. It sits really well on the space in the right place, yeah, like this. It would be probably more expensive if it still had its original base and its original ceilings, that is. And so for this reason, we put quite a low price, 25,000 euro is the starting price. Pieces of this size from the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries, and even later, sell in the 100,000s. I have this one here, which of course retains, as you can see, a very similar base, almost identical base, but it has the figure which is also from the 13th century. That would have a completely different alloy with very, very little zinc in it. This one, of course, has the 13th century figure on it. So this sold for $500,000. And then here you have one that is lacking the base, which is also very large, 55 centimeters, and which sold for 360,000. The interesting thing is this piece here, as you can see, the way it's made in 2 pieces with the main torso, with sparse decoration, and here the head, very large, and with these elaborate, large earlobes and cast separately and conjoined at this place here in the neck, is very similar. This is a 13th century piece, maybe even late 12th century, and it is known that these pieces were also in the imperial palace at the time brought by the Tibetans, and so it's possible that this piece was a prototype for this piece being made. Either way, it is very clear that it was made after earlier Tibetan prototypes in the 15th century, but it has some elements of classic Chinese style. This is clearly visible. It's not 100% pure Tibetan piece, which none of the Suande and Yunglo pieces are, of course. The condition is, besides, of course, the things we already discussed, it has some patina here. It has not a lot of corrosion. We had a look in the lab, and this is pretty consistent, the wear, and you see some traces of cuprite and brass coming out here and some malachite here. So it has the typical wear that it has from touching over centuries. This is the piece, and it has, of course, very good provenance. It comes from Peter Hart here, his personal collector. He had, of course, been operating his gallery from the 1970s onwards for over 50 years and has an important collection of Asian art. This is one piece that comes directly from him. We'll sell a few more in the years to come. And yeah, if you want to bid on it, I wish you good luck, and I see you at the auction.